Hello, everybody, and welcome to School Libraries of Relationship Building and Belonging. This is a webinar brought to you by the Louisiana Association of School Libraries. It is free. On the screen, you can see our slide deck. So if you would like to go back and look at the slide deck, that is the bit.ly link, but it is also in the YouTube description. And I believe, I should have checked before I started this, but I believe I put in a PD certificate. So if you need a certificate to show that you have watched this webinar for professional development, it is in the YouTube description. So I am very, very excited tonight. My name is Amanda Jones, and I am the Vice President of LASL, and I am a 5th and 6th grade school librarian in Watson, Louisiana. And I'm excited to introduce our guests today, and I'll put it on their slide so you can see. Our guests today are Dustin Hensley and Veronica Watson. Dustin Hensley is a school librarian in Elizabethton. Did I say Elizabethton? I knew I was going to mess that up. High school in Elizabethton, Tennessee, and is an adjunct professor in the Masters of School Librarianship program at East Tennessee State University. At EHS, Dustin also serves as a special projects lead, grant writer, and student voice ambassador. And he didn't tell me to say this, but I'm going to say it because he is a 2021 Library Journal mover and shaker, which is a huge deal. So that is Dustin. And then Veronica is here with us. We're so happy to have Veronica. Veronica Watson attended Elizabethton High School, and she is now at East Tennessee State University, and she is majoring in computer science. She loves roller skating and listening to vinyl records, which I do too. So we would probably be friends if we live near each other. But I'm going to turn it over to Dustin and Veronica. And so I'm going to take myself out of the screen and let you get started. So thank you. And now I'm going to back out and turn it over to you, Dustin.
All right. Thank you so much, Amanda. I really appreciate it. So thank you all for being here this evening. It's night here in Tennessee, and I guess it's Central Time in Louisiana, so evening for you, I guess. Kind of hard to tell whenever it's evening, whatever, nighttime. But welcome to relationship building and belonging in school libraries. First, I want to talk about building strong relationships. I'm really thankful to have Veronica here with me tonight to talk about how do you build those relationships with students in your school library. And it's super important for me that I feel like that relationship building is the essence of what I do as a school librarian. That we'll get deeper into that as we go on. But so much of what we want to accomplish as school librarians, whether it be through literacy or information literacy, whatever we're looking at, so much of that can fall down to how do I build a relationship with this student to better serve them and what they need me to do for them. Amanda, if you don't mind to move this slide. So I saw this quote several years ago at a conference. It was the ANACOL, which is now the Aurora Institute Symposium, that vulnerability is essential to good pedagogy. And that's something that has stuck with me ever since I saw that several years ago, that it's so important for us to be vulnerable with our students. And that's something that's really difficult for us to do as educators. I feel like there's some inherent egotism into being a teacher because we feel like that we have a room of people that need to listen to us, that what we say is so important, but and like the authoritarianism that we have as educators, but students want to be able to see us as human beings. And I feel like all of us want to be that way around our students at some point. So in this picture, you see me in my natural habitat, surrounded by students and being really happy. And I feel like having that vulnerability around students helps them trust you. And that's really a key in that relationship building, is having trust between the teacher and the student, or the librarian and the student. Something that's amazing for us as librarians that's different, especially high school librarians, which I am, that's different from other teachers, is that we never have to come to a point where we're judging the performance of the student. Everything that we do is about helping them cultivate their self-interests, helping them in their learning journey, and be an advocate for them. So that gives us that opportunity where we don't have to be an authoritarian all the time, that teachers might have to do that in the classroom. So being vulnerable with them and just listening and talking with them. One of my favorite things to do is just to talk with a student about what they're interested in and then go and learn some more about it on my own, and then go talk to the student about it again later. And it's always such a big deal to them that I went and researched it. I've spent many a night listening to music that a student would be like, oh my gosh, I love this, whoever. So then I would go listen to it. So then the next day, I'd be like, hey, I went and listened to that music. And they'd be like, oh, wow, I didn't think you'd like that kind of music. I'm like, you know what? I didn't think I'd like it either. But here I am to talk about it. And there's been so many different things like that their favorite TV show or manga, which my manga section's right behind me. We'll talk about that in a minute. So many different things have come up from those conversations of just what do you like? What are you interested in? And all of that eventually leads to them finding a book in the library, which we'll talk about that a little bit more later on as well. But that relationship building helps give you that opportunity to get them to something that'll help them either enjoy literature or learn more about a topic. And just, like I said earlier, cultivate that self-interest. And that relationship building is a key there. Go ahead and switch the slide. So one big thing in that relationship building is it helps you develop your library collection. Whenever I first arrived here at Elizabethton in 2015, which was long before the manga boom of 2021, but there was no manga section here. And I've told this story before, but I saw a student was reading manga online illegally on one of the library computers. And I was like, hey, super cool, they're reading, but I don't like the way they're doing it. Not necessarily a fan of them doing this illegally to where the mangaka is not getting the funding or the money they should be getting for them purchasing the book. So I had a conversation with them and other students that enjoyed manga. I'm like, we need to create a collection because that's what they want to read. Yeah, I'm making those kids jealous with that manga. I've actually got quite a bit more than that now. That's an old picture. The wall behind them, I've got a whole wall of manga now. It gets checked out on a very regular basis. But all of that came from me talking with students and figuring out what is it that you want to read? What is it that you're interested in that we don't have, that we need to get so you can feel like you belong here more? And I'll keep saying this over and over. We'll go over a little bit more later on, but getting kids in is the most important thing. Making them feel like that this is a place where they belong. And Veronica will touch on that here in a minute. But making the library feel like a space where it's theirs. I never want the library to feel like it's Mr. Hensley's space. And I hope that that's something as students never feel like that this is the space that I make. There's a saying that I love that I try to think of anytime I'm doing something, that anything about us without us is not for us. So if I'm making decisions for the library without input from students, then I'm making the decisions for myself. I'm not making them for the students. So I try to, anytime I make any decision, like we're currently in year 4 of genrifying. It's been a process. Going through COVID kind of hurt that process quite a bit. So we're still doing all the labor on it. But that was something that I talked with a lot of students about, of moving away from Dewey Decimal System and going into a genreification, more of a bookstore model. There we have all new furniture in the library from whenever I first came in through grant funding. And the design of the furniture and the layout of the library all came from student input. I didn't want to buy furniture that I thought would look good based off what I want. I'm a 30-year-old man. I don't have the same taste that a 16-year-old would. So all of that came from discussions with students of what do you want this place to look like? What would the setup or the layout be that would best fit your needs as a student? So you can go ahead and move to the next slide. And it also comes along with programming. So before I came, we had a chess club, but we did not have a club for all types of different tabletop gaming. So now talking with a lot of students, they wanted a place where they could play Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Veronica was part of that club. But like all kinds of games like that, they're playing Baldur's Gate in that picture. If you look in the top right in the very back corner, you can see my bald head back there, humbling to students at Magic the Gathering. But just talking with the students and building that relationship, I found out that this is something that they don't have here at the school that they wanted to have, that they didn't feel represented by the clubs that we had across the building. So the library was able to add something that we didn't have before. And the same thing is true of Japanese club. So we have a club where I teach Japanese language when we talk about Japanese culture. And that's something that a lot of students wanted to know about that we didn't have at the school. So building that relationship helped me figure out, here's something else that these students are really missing. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. I think it's Veronica's turn. Yeah, go ahead, Veronica, take over. You're on mute, Veronica.
Do you see, is there like a little microphone in the right-hand corner? Oh, wait, I can probably unmute you. No, I can't.
Veronica, my unmute. Oh,
hey, look, she'll pop out, and then as she pops back in, it should be working. Hey, so while we're waiting on Veronica, I want to answer something in the question real quick, in the comment section real quick. Dustin, oh, there she is. Hey, Veronica, can we hear you? Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Let me tell everybody, people that are watching are asking about a certificate for PD. It says it's access denied. Okay, I will go in and I will try to work on that, Chelsea, and try back in about 5 minutes and let me know. All right, I'm going to bow back out and turn it back over to Veronica.
All right, sorry about that. I think my dorm just got new Wi-Fi and it's really spotty, and I'm so excited about that. But anyway, yes, libraries are special, especially the one that I had the privilege of getting to spend so much time in during high school. Hensley made it really special, and I'll get into that in the later slides, but I really did spend every waking minute I could, not in class, and whenever I got permission to go to the library during class, I would. Pretty much any excuse I could. It became a home away from home at the school, and I spent time after school. I went and did my senior year online and still went back to school so that I could go to the library and keep in touch. So it was a very special place for me. And on the next slide, I can get into a little bit about why. Pardon me. The environment was very welcoming. Like Hensley said, it's a very key thing to make people feel like they want to come. And I think part of the reason why it was so welcoming was because it wasn't very quiet. Usually when you think of a library, there's like an old lady sitting behind the desk shushing you for everything. But that kind of environment really, I know for me anyway, kind of makes me anxious. Like if it's so quiet you can hear my footsteps, I feel like everything I do would just call attention to myself, and that's not really very comfortable. So because it was just this environment to hang out and like read and chill and talk to people if you need to and get information, I just felt like my presence was wanted there, as opposed to trying to just mute everything and that there's nothing here but books. Like that's not true. And so that was awesome. And it's where everything happened. So like Hensley said, there was Magic the Gathering games, they had tabletop things, there was classes that would go on in the library. When other classes needed to present things, they would go to the library to present it for the various media resources that they had to offer. There was presidents of my college and other colleges that came and talked to the students in the library. It's where even the faculty have their meetings, and it was where everything happened. So it felt like it was accessible. You could go eat there during lunch. Some people didn't love that, but it was a thing, and it's what got me through high school. Like, man, if I had to go sit in that cafeteria with like 100 people at a time, it would not have been okay. So having that space to really go to where it was more chill, and I felt like people cared and wanted me there, made all of the difference. And there was like a meeting room in the back that you could do like interviews and things in if you had to. There was an archive room that was kind of off to the side. It had a bunch of all of the yearbooks and everything, but it was like this walk-in closet type deal that you fit a table in, and it kind of became like a panic room of sorts for people and they needed to go sit for a minute and just decompress. And there really was something for absolutely everyone. And I really owe a lot of this to Hensley, and I tried really hard to extrapolate it and pull it into just libraries, but the library wouldn't have been the same without Hensley to talk to, and you would go the extra mile to do the research for people, and that just completely changed so many people. It changed my life. It made everybody feel welcome because you, like yourself, you liked manga and you liked Japanese culture, and so that brought in a demographic that typically wouldn't go out of their way to meet new people. You help bring them in and get them connected, and then the people who aren't like that, who play sports and who are really into things like that in the school, you could go talk to you because you're really into sports as well, and there was books and resources for that you could get people connected to. And so it made sure that there was something for everyone, a manga section and sports and music and absolutely everything anybody could be looking for. You could point them in the direction of the library and it would happen. And then on the next slide, we'll get into some of the various resources that it provided as well when you were there. Because there was there was so many computers. Like when I was there, it changed like right as I left, but the whole half of the library was filled with like rows and rows and rows of desktops that anybody could just go and use anytime. There was a back lab in the back that had even more computers that classes could go use. Eventually that transitioned into Chromebooks and laptops for students, and through COVID and grant funding, we got laptops for everybody. So every student could have one of those. And so that allowed for them to take the space of that front lab and expand it and make it more livable spaces for everybody with more tables. There were also VR headsets that like history classes could use, and you could go like put yourself in Rome and look around Rome if that was the topic for today. And that was just something cool. There was a camera. I remember I had to do various different activities for some of my classes that involved filming. So there was a camera that I could check out and use, and an SD card and everything. And I could use the computers in the library with editing software. And like Hensley mentioned, they got all new furniture recently, but even before then, there were still always chairs and things. But now we've got this nice like couch set up around a Christmas tree, and it's like Hensley's favorite holiday, so the tree always stays up and it gets decorated for different holidays and things, and it's such a homey feeling to just go sit by the tree and like read or do some homework, and that helped really make it inviting as well. And then there's the community aspect. Elizabethton is a small little town in Tennessee, all the way up in the corners, far right as you can go just about. And so we're really connected because of that. It's very much a small town in that respect. And so the school played a really crucial part in our community. And it was important that we get our students connected to the community because we want them to give back to our community. It was oftentimes our best and brightest would go elsewhere, out of the city, out of the state. So allowing the students in some classes that were going on to branch out in the community was something that was very central to the library and very central to Mr. Hensley, because we knew we could go to you with these things and you could help us find resources. And if you didn't know anybody, you would know who to ask, or you would know the direction to point us in. And I think librarians can really be great for that. It's like they have encyclopedias in the library, but they themselves are encyclopedias of endless knowledge and endless resources. And so when you think of like going to the library for resources, you really can't neglect the people that are there because they provide a lot. And going on Hensley's first point, being vulnerable with students is insane. I mean, I've been through a lot of school and I've got 3 more years ahead of me, and there's just something special when you can make a joke with a teacher and you can laugh and you feel this more human connection with them. You feel like they actually care about what you're doing and are invested in your growth as a student. It helps me want to put more effort into things. It helps me want to get up every morning and go to class if I know that at least one person there cares about me as a person, not my test scores, not how often I'm coming, nothing else but my personal growth. And that was something I really found in Mr. Hensley in this library, is because I could go there and I knew that he'd be a great sounding board if I was having a bad day. And every now and then you'd give me advice on things. If I'm having issues academically, or if I have an issue with a teacher, you'd give me a good route to really cope with that and find a way to help find solutions to things. But you also never told anybody what to do. So you are really great at giving suggestions and helping us find our own answers, which is something that also is an amazing trait to have in a librarian, because, again, going back to that resource thing, you're not just giving us answers, you're helping us develop our own resources to find our own solutions to things. And it just wouldn't be the same without someone as supportive as that. So that was a big thing. Next slide. But above all of that amazing, beautiful library situation, there's like really one heart to why I spent so many hours in the library. And that's hidden in the next slide. So I truly belonged there. I always felt like I was welcome. And whenever I needed to get away, high school is really stressful. You're going through so much as a person, you're growing, everybody else is growing around you and growing apart from you. And it's really tumultuous on top of academics that are getting harder and preparing you for college. It's like, there's really nothing more like shaking up a bottle than high school. And going to the library, it was a place that I could just kind of let the air out of the cap a little bit and sit down with some books that are quieter and things that I knew could be there for me and just help me unwind. And it inspired so much creativity and passion, because people would take the time to ask about what you're reading or what you're looking at or what you're talking about, or if they heard you present about something and want to know more, it would just get you connected and inspire creativity because you're surrounded by so much creativity. And it just really did. It felt like home. Everybody knew that they could go there. And there was just something so special about all of the different kinds of people being in one place and just being okay with each other, because they all had this common ground of really liking the library. Plus, having a really well-read librarian like Mr. Hensley over here, he could give you really good suggestions for someone. I don't read a whole lot. I fall asleep pretty much every time I try to read, but he really did. He gave me a few suggestions for some books. I remember the first time I needed an excuse to get into the library. I'm like, I guess I need to go check out a book, huh? And I went up to you and I was talking about, so you asked me some of the things I liked and was interested in, and you pointed me in the direction of a Neil Gaiman novel that wasn't in the library, but it was your own personal collection that you figured I would like. And I read through a little bit of it and I really did like it. And it felt really cool that it was from like your personal collection, because it's like it was little insider secret, but it was just really special, and I always felt welcome there. And that's it. I think the last slide is a thank you slide. So
there is my head photoshopped on a Richard Scary Librarian, which is definitely a scary librarian right there. So some of you might be high school librarians with flex scheduling, so students they don't have to come to the library, so you have to go and get them and bring them into the library, in which you don't have to dragoon them or like capture them and drag them into the library, but how do you go out and make them want to be in the library? So that's the next part of this presentation, if you don't mind to switch the slide from that scary slide. Yeah, so one way is collaborating with teachers. So I did a collaboration with our digital arts teacher a few years ago to put on a student film festival at a local drive-in movie theater. And through that, I was able to get a lot of students working in the library with the cameras that we had and the video editing software, and I got to work with them on their what they were creating and help them like create what they wanted to create. So talk them through their process. What kind of story you wanting to tell? So I got to really learn a lot about students and build some really interesting relationships with them through something like that. But that's just one way of how to get kids to show up in the library to begin with, is work with certain teachers that'll bring them to you and allow you to work with them on a more direct basis than you might be used to. Next slide. I am an active participant in every pep rally that we have. I am the least athletic human in the building, most likely. But students think it's hilarious that I, like, on the left, I played in the teacher-student basketball game, and I thought I was going to have an asthma attack and die. But for some reason, the students were all chanting for me to go back out on the court. And I was laying in the bleacher screaming no, because I didn't know if my lungs could handle it. You can see the students with their Go Hensley sign and the Hensley. I'm not sure if that was very like ecstatic with the ellipses there going on, but I just try to put myself out there as much as possible and be as ridiculous as possible. So they'll be like, I want to be around that goofy man. Something that I usually do at the pep rallies is I will take books and like free books and throw them into the student, like into the crowd. And for some reason they think that's the coolest thing ever. I don't know why. The students will go crazy for me to throw books, paperbacks, by the way. I was not throwing like unabridged dictionaries or anything. But some paperbacks, throw them into the audience, and the kids would go crazy. And they would be like, after the paper, I was like, oh, you didn't throw one to me. Can you get me next time? And just something absolutely off the wall silly helped to get students into the library. I actually didn't ask the person over pep rallies if I could do it the first time. I just started doing it. And then afterwards, they were like, hey, the students really seem to like that. Do we want to do it again? So that was one of those ask forgiveness and permission situations. I just kind of felt I guess the spirit hit me. And I just wanted to throw books at kids. So I just went out there and did it.
That's how I got my free copy of The Life of Pi, man. I think I was for that initial pep rally. I got one of the originals.
So, hey, I don't know why, but it worked. And kids will show up to the library afterwards because they saw me being an absolute ridiculous fool during the pep rallies. And something else that I did when I first started was I would go in the hallways and put up as many just goofy library memes as possible. I'll never forget, I made one Shakespeare saying like with a little word bubble. This is "'Tis lit," and the starting quarterback for the football team thought it was the funniest thing ever, and he would walk by me every day in the hallway and go, "'Tis lit," and he eventually started coming into the library every day. It was Carter, Veronica. He eventually started coming in the library every day because he thought that was so funny. And I would like find different albums that were popular, and I would remake the covers into library specific. Like there was a Drake album that said, if you're reading this, it's too late. So I switched it and said, oh, what did I say? If you're reading this, your book is late. So just silly things like that. And kids thought it was the teenagers, you know how they are. They thought that was just the silliest thing. And they would come talk to me about it. Be like, hey, are you the one that made that and put it in the hallway? And I'd be like, yeah. And then they'd be like, hey, I thought that was really cool. And then we would just start talking. And because of that, I built a lot of relationships with students and got them into the library. And eventually most of them reading books because of just whatever ridiculous thing I can think of. You can go ahead and switch the slide. So another thing is there I am with currently my assistant principal. We dressed up and had our pictures made, and kids made coloring sheets out of the pictures. So throughout the school, we were finding just pictures of us colored. again, it's just off the wall, silly things that students thought were hilarious. And kids were coming into the library and like, hey, can I get one of those coloring sheets of you and Diaz? Why is that? And we also had t-shirts made. But why was that a thing? Like it, I don't know. One time we did something where we had potatoes and we had little like box with a blanket in it and had the potatoes in there where you could adopt a potato, and they were called Spuddy Buddies. And kids were showing up that never been in the library before, and they were like, can I get one of those Spuddy Buddies? So we just give kids random potatoes it's like pet rocks, but potatoes. And kids would come back and give us updates on their Spuddy Buddies after that. So that's like, yeah, it was the most ridiculous things. And they would eventually come and tell us like, I ate my Spuddy Buddy yesterday. Like we had it for dinner. I baked it, or they'd tell me like what recipe they used to eat their Spuddy Buddy. It was just the most, like I said, often most off the wall things you can think of. And if you can get students to do it with you, then they absolutely love it and want to be around. Generally, most of those kind of ideas are the students' ideas, not mine. Like the Spuddy Buddies was some students and I were just joking about potatoes for some reason, and it ended up getting kids that never been in here before showed up so they could get a pet potato. And because of that, I got to build relationships with them and help them get some books to check out. And it always cracks me up whenever they do finally check out the book. And I'm like, you know why you're doing this, right? It's because of this ridiculous thing that I did. Or it's funny to see like the genesis and the progression of how this relationship started and where it ends up. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So that is our presentation. Would love some questions. There is my social on there. I'm on the Twitter at dshensley.edu. I like having the conversations on the Twitter. So by all means, give me a follow. I am currently 60 away from 1,000. Get me up there so I can get that clout and be a social media superstar like Amanda.
You gotta be an edge of celebrity, edge of celeb. Is that what they're called?
Edge of celeb. Yes, I need that. I need to be a social media maven.
Yeah, I look.
There's a picture of me with sirens. I had sirens on my head, and I was the vape police.
Stop it.
There's so many stories, bro. They're all amazing.
I'm dying, like, and I'm writing all this stuff down. I'm like, okay, Spuddy Buddy. I gotta do Spuddy Buddy. And I have 5th and 6th graders, and they would like it too, you know. And there's so many good ideas. You're talking about the books at the pep rallies, and I've never thought about that. And it makes me think about, we had Mr. John Shue come to our school a couple weeks ago, and you would have thought, I'm showing my age here, but it was like, I pictured it was like at a New Kids on the Block concert, and he was like Donnie Wahlberg, and they were like, oh, and like he was throwing shirts, but he was throwing books, and everybody was dying, and the kids were like crying, and they're like, books, and they're crying. And then they all came in the library, and they wanted all the books that Mr. Shue was throwing out in the crowd. And I don't know why it never connected. Maybe I should do that at pep rallies like you're doing. That's a wonderful idea. You know, and what you're describing, what the two of you have been describing, is what we should all aspire for our school libraries to be, whether you're elementary on up. And it looks different in an elementary school versus a middle school versus a high school. I'm not built for elementary, I'll tell you that. I'm built for middle and high school. Hey, if someone gets hurt when you don't throw them that hard. You know, don't like.
I asked if I could use the t-shirt cannon, and they said no, that would be a liability issue. So I gently tossed them. I don't, you know.
As the recipient of one of the tossed books, I was not injured in any way.
That's funny. And you clarified that you use paperbacks.
Yes, only paperbacks.
But what you're talking about, what the two of you are talking about is, you know, we really need to build those relationships with our students, with our administrator, with our teachers, with our community, because you're just going to have a better library program when you build up those relationships, you know. And two things I wanted to say. First, to Veronica, I was never as well-spoken my freshman year in college as Veronica is. I'm still not as well spoken. Veronica, you did a really excellent job. And I have a stone cold heart. And let me just say, I was tearing up when you were talking about the library, because that's what we all aspire to hear our students say. And we don't always get to hear it. And so the second thing I wanted to say is, from now on, I will no longer refer to you, Dustin, as Dustin. You'll just be Hensley from now on. So just Hensley. It's just, and I'm gonna try to get the kids to just call me Jones. I'm gonna start that tomorrow. Just call me Jones. Don't Jones. They do that. I noticed they do that at the high school level. Our high school does that. But I really appreciate the both of you coming on here and telling your story and sharing about the library. And I hope that I make it to Elizabethton, Tennessee one day to get to see your library. And it's no surprise to me. First, after reading about you online, but it's after hearing you talk, it's no wonder you are a library journal mover and shaker. And we are going to help you get over 1,000 followers on Twitter.
That's all that matters in my life right now. Nothing. I need. The only validation I have is through social media. So please help me. This is all I have in my life.
I was doing that last week. I was up to a number, and I'm not going to tell you what number, but it was okay. It was like 6,000. I'm going to tell you, but it was my goal was to get to 6,000, and it was hovering for like weeks. And then I texted my friend. I'm like, I finally got over, and so. I get it. So we're gonna get you over 1,000. But
Thank you, School Library of the Year. Thank you, National School Library Journal.
I'm at 13. I'll drop mine if anybody wants to get.
Yes. Hey, tell me yours and I'll tag you. Tell me what yours is, and I'll tag you on Twitter, because I'm gonna post about this on Twitter and tell everybody. And by the way, thank y'all again. If you are a Louisiana school librarian, actually, if you're any school librarian or whoever, I don't care who joins our webinars, anybody can join our webinars, any educators, students, librarians. We have a website, and our website has all sorts of information and professional development opportunities. We do have another webinar coming up in February. I think it's February 26th. I can't read that little print. I should have looked at it. I think it's February 26th. And it's going to be myself representing LASL, and it's going to be Dr. Steve Tatro, he was on here on this webinar a minute ago, and he is representing New Jersey Association of School Librarians, and Wendy Prey from Texas, who is representing the Texas Association of School Librarians. So our next webinar is going to be a joint webinar of 3 different associations titled Let's End Literacy Shaming. If you are going to be in the Louisiana area around April 30th, we are having a professional development day on April 30th. It is completely free. You don't have to be a member of our association. You don't have to live in our state. Anybody can attend. I've even invited Dr. Pam Moore from Alabama. I'm like, Dr. Pam, it's not too far to drive over from Alabama to attend our free PD, and it's going to be at the beautiful Episcopal School of Baton Rouge, which is home to the wonderful Tiffany Whitehead, otherwise known as Mighty Little Librarian. She's going to host our professional development that day. So you can visit our website to find all of that, and our webinar playlist and everything is on the screen. So once again, I want to thank you, Hensley, because I'm not calling you Dustin anymore. I want to thank you, Hensley, and thank you, Veronica. Y'all stick around after I end this, but everyone else, we will talk to you later, and tell everybody you shared this link. The recording is housed at the same link, and you can share it far and wide. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.